I wanted to welcome, I'm Susan Mack, and I am now the membership co-chair for the League of Women Voters in the Montclair area. And I want to welcome everybody to this year's League orientation, where I am personally so excited about this event, especially after we had such a record-breaking year with voter registration events and voter registration forms and voter education, and it was all through COVID, which was wonderful and Herculean in my view. So just a little brief about tonight. We will provide an overview of what the League does in more detail, how we do it, and what makes us so different than all the other, or most of the other political organizations out there. We also want to talk about how to get the most out of membership and where, as a League, we want to put our efforts in for 2021. Then we have a history on the major projects that our League has been doing or has done in the past, both locally and within the United Nations. We have a treasure trove of talent in our League, longer-term members that have dedicated many, many hours of their life to this League, which is such a rich thing to share. So Mary Lee Jones will start off the League's overview, talking about how the League is structured. And then Carolyn Lack will talk about what we have accomplished as a local league, and Doris Shapira will talk about our work with the United Nations. Okay, so that was the orientation kickoff, and now it's up to Mary Lee for the next slide.
I'm waiting for the slide.
There you go.
The League has a mission statement, which includes the points that we are a nonpartisan but political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. And we work to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Next slide. But what does the mission statement mean? How do we accomplish this? Next slide. What does being nonpartisan mean? It means that at every level of the state organization, local, state, and national, we do not support or oppose political candidates. Certain League leaders who have visible jobs are not permitted to show their support for candidates. But all members are really encouraged to be politically active. Next slide. The League is also a grassroots organization, meaning that decisions come from the bottom up. Members drive the decisions which are approved and implemented. Next slide. As being grassroots, leadership is also chosen in a grassroots fashion. At the local level, a nominating committee will propose officers for the coming year. The members who are attending the meeting will vote at an annual meeting. Local League delegates will attend a state convention where the same process will take place. Officers will be proposed and the delegates will approve. And the same thing happens at the national level. The officers who are appointed represent the membership and carry out the membership's decisions. Next slide. We work to increase the understanding of public policy, to influence public policy through education and advocacy. How do we do this? Next slide. Probably one of the most important things the League does is a consensus process. Again, it goes back to our grassroots belief. committees propose ideas that they believe are important to, I'm going to talk about local, start with the local level, propose subjects that they feel their communities are concerned about, but they should require legislative or other governmental actions. The committee then gets approval from the membership and the board to proceed with investigating the subject. After completing research, the committee again has a general meeting and reports on both pro and con arguments. Following the discussion, the opinion of the group is obtained through consensus or the sense of the group. A vote is not taken. A moderator summarizes the opinions of the group, which are reported to the board. Next slide. Now, at a program planning meeting, the membership will adopt new issues to become eventually become league positions. Once it becomes a league position, the league will advocate for that position. This means public meetings, information to media outlets, just generally publicizing the league's position to the community, speaking to groups. These, I revised this. These positions remain pretty current, pretty standard for a period of time, but eventually, over a period of time, the positions are reviewed to make sure they're still valid, whether they need to be changed or dropped. The committee has a chairman who sits on the board and follows the process. Okay, with the next slide. The same steps are taken by state leagues and the national leagues. Program planning follows the same process by holding conventions attended by delegates from leagues all over the country. Any issues suggested by local leagues will be sent to all leagues before conventions so members can consider them. At state and national conventions, delegates caucus and lobby for support, hoping that their issues will become study items and eventually league positions. Next slide.
That's me.
Members role.
Mary Lee, that's me.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Lee. So I wanted to talk about member roles.
Passing this off. All right. No.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Mary Lee.
I'll
So since we have a lot of new members on the call, we also have a lot of volunteers that may be interested in joining. And there are so many opportunities to get involved in the league and in whatever way works for you. A wise woman who is actually on the call in the league once told me that what she loves about the league is that there is so much freedom to do what you want, and there's always someone there to support you, which has been my experience. So my personal journey is just one example. I joined the league in early 2017. I actually think my first meeting was the program planning session in January. And within the first 18 months, I volunteered my partner, Ron Pate, to be membership chair. I attended, through some luck, the United Nations conference in February, March of that year. And I also put on a community event called Families for Democracy. I literally had free reign to do things that, made sense and was in line with the league. And then as I felt more comfortable, I became the voter registration chair. And I realized that everyone locally was already registered, which led me to focus on underserved communities in Essex County for voter registration that resulted in last year's record-breaking number of voter registration forms and voter registration events. It was a banner year. In addition, throughout this process, I created an email list that morphed into numerous committees made up of volunteers and members on a variety of issues. So, trust me, your personal journey in the league can go in whatever way you want and in so many directions. Next slide. So how does one get involved? I would love to hear from you all as to what initiatives that are important to you for 2021. I am in process of putting an online survey together to hear from all the members, to find out, what issues are important to you or your hot button issues for this year. Here on the slide are a few categories, overall categories with some examples. And having spoken to a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, some of the issues that I keep on hearing is civics education in our schools for our children, the electoral college, improving the voting process and the voter registration process in New Jersey, transparency in local government. A lot of folks really don't know how local government works. So in Montclair, we've been working with our mayor to talk about, creating videos and doing things like that. And among a lot of other things as issues for members. So if you could put in the chat, maybe there's a big group, a much bigger group than we were expecting. So it's probably going to be hard to have a group discussion about it. So if you could put in the chat and we can keep that and we can talk about it later, that would be much appreciated. Next slide. And one interesting thing about what I've seen, kind of dissecting what's happened with my experience in the league is, the best way is to share things you like to do, share skills, talents you're good at. We had a recent new member helped us with the new website. She happens to be a website content writer, and big shout out to Diane Stewart. She helped us do a lot of the content on our current website that we launched in October. And earlier last year, we had a few new members that joined, and it just all naturally happened. Donna Ward, who's our web host tonight, had as our voter service chair, but she jumped into spearheading the first virtual candidates night in New Jersey, if not the entire US. She's great at coordinating meetings. None of us knew a lot about Zoom at the time, but she jumped in, learned it, and made it happen. And she's still doing meetings, as shown by tonight. Our communications chair was really good at writing. I had no idea, but she loves to do it. And our voter registration chair has a passion for website design. So everyone's kind of naturally fallen into areas that they enjoy doing or are really good at. So that's, been a great example. Next slide. And here is a slide on benefits of membership. There are so many as noted here. For me, the biggest benefit was to feel that I'm making a difference. That's why I joined in 2017. And I wanted to improve our community. It has also, for me personally, has been a great opportunity to get to know these amazing women in the league that have been long-term members. And I've also gotten to know a lot of newer members. And all of them have become, close personal friends of mine. So it's just been a fabulous experience on all levels. I feel like I've accomplished a lot and made a lot of good friends in the interim. So I'd like to pass it off to Carolyn Lack, a member for over 60 years in our Montclair Area League, who will talk about some of the things that our local league has accomplished over the years. Carolyn, it's all you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to talk to you about the important issues that the league tackled over many years, and we've made quite an impact on government. I want to talk about 4 of them I personally was involved with. The first one was the change in Essex County form of government. The second was the change in the Montclair form of government. And then the appointed versus elected school board of education issue, and about the change in the municipal date election from May to November. Next slide. So the first one goes way back to 1972. And I think there's a member of the audience tonight who also was involved with this. Eileen, I think you were involved at the same time I was.
Yes, that I remember.
Yeah. Okay. What started this was that there was a law called the Musto Act, which enabled counties to change their form of government. And at that time, we had an Essex County League of Women Voters. And we looked at our county government and we found it was so wasteful and inefficient and corrupt. We had freeholders. Each one had his own department, whether it was roads or hospitals or education. Each one created his own budget, hired its own employees and supplies, and didn't know what all the others were doing. There was no coordination. They also, we found, would hire some of their friends, and they were no-show jobs, and there was a lot of corruption. So we knew it had to be changed. And we tried, the league tried to propose a study of other forms of government. But the freeholders didn't want that. They liked the way it was. So the only way we could begin to get some change was to get a question on the ballot to have a study of alternate forms of government. And that required getting thousands of signatures. And I remember standing at a supermarket with my clipboard, and I'd say to people, it's only for a study to change the form of government. It was not electing anybody. Well, we got more than the number of signatures, but we faced a lot of battles with the existing county because they threw out a lot of signatures and made them invalid. And we knew that was wrong. So the only way we could prove it would be to go down to Essex County Hall of Records and look at the ones they threw out. And we found they threw out people they said were dead and they were alive and kicking. They threw out Assemblyman Thomas King, who was in the assembly at that point. Imagine throwing his name out. Well, we succeeded in getting enough signatures, and the study was created, and then we had to go and work to get the change that was recommended by the study commission, which was to have a county executive to oversee all of the departments in the county. Now, this took about 6 years of very active League of Women Voters work. Next slide. I saved a lot of clippings from the newspaper. You can see that some of them are quite old. If you look at the color of them, you'll see that they're quite aged. But this was covered widely in the Star Ledger and our local paper. You can see some of the headlines. The charter change was ordered on the ballot, and the League of Women Voters discussed the county charter work. I wish you could see the middle one, because not only did it talk about our efforts in changing the government, but you get a big kick out of the ads and you see what things cost in those days. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So when we finished successfully changing the county government, and I have to just add that when we did succeed in getting the county executive formed, the first county executive was a member of the Charter Change Committee. That was Peter Cooper, and he was our first county executive. Well, then we looked at the Montclair form of government, and it had been looked at for many years without any change. But when we looked at our government, we found the same problems as we had in the county. We had 5 commissioners, and each one had his own department, his own budget, his own employees, duplication of services and expenses, totally inefficient. So the league worked to get a charter study question on the ballot. And that was very difficult because the existing commissioners did not want to change, just like the county didn't. So we found that there was not only the league, but citizens within the town who were interested in this, and there was a charter change committee formed and worked along with us. I have to skip over many details, but when we finally got the charter change committee studying all the possible forms of government, they recommended the council manager form. And we in the league studied it. We had consensus meetings. And then we went to work to really make this thing happen. We spoke, we wrote articles, we sent mailings comparing the different forms. We got the support of past commissioners. We ran ads in the paper and we featured their pictures of community leaders who supported it. We got the support of the Montclair Times. We sponsored debates. We worked at the polls. We did phoning for a yes vote. And of course, we won. And then we had to monitor the recount. And certainly it was important to monitor the ward redistricting. So look at the next slide. The next few slides will show some of our media blitz. This is an example of what we ran in several issues of the paper, Prominent People. The upper left-hand corner was a picture of Matthew Carter, the first Black mayor that we had. Then on the top right was Millicent Anisfield. She was a former president of the League of Women Voters and very active in a number of things. Below her was Ruth Clark, another very active member of our league. And the others were all active community people. Next slide. Here are some of the newspaper clippings. You can see those a little bit better, but they're getting turning brown also with age. One that I want to point out where it says Faulkner makes pitch for Montclair change. Bayard Faulkner was a past mayor of Montclair. He also was in the state legislature. He also was the author of the Faulkner Act, which described the various possible forms of government that municipalities could have. And when Bayard Faulkner was in favor of the change to council manager form of government, that was a big plus for us. So the next slide. Well, this is the 4th time that Montclair tried to change its government. And this time we did succeed. Next slide. Then I'll go on to the appointed versus elected school board. And many of you have been in town when this issue occurred. It occurred twice during the time I was involved, in 1995 and again in 2009. And they're still talking about it today. So in 1995, we studied that issue again. And we reached the position to support an appointed school board, which we had. And we advocated for a no vote on the ballot, which was against the elected Board of Education. And once again, that referendum was defeated and we retained the appointed board. Next slide. Now, this I don't want you to try and read now, but this is an example of what we put in the paper and we presented to the community. All the different reasons why we supported an appointed board. As a matter of fact, to bring this up to date, it was not too many months ago that this issue was raised again in Montclair. And our league director of communications, Carmel Lockman, sent an article to the newspaper explaining the reasons why it's important to keep the appointed school board. I think it had some impact because we haven't heard any more rumbling since then.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Bringing this up to another referendum.
Carolyn, it's Carmel.
Oh, you're there.
Yeah. Just today, I got an email and this issue is coming forth again.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, we're ready because we have all the information and we'll have unit meetings again to reaffirm our position, and we'll get active again if it does come before the public. Next slide. Here are some of the things we did, big banners and things in the paper. Next slide. Okay. Here is on the right, you see where we won. There's our former county clerk, Linda Wannett, accepting the election results. Next slide. Okay, the most recent issue that the league was active in was when there was a movement to move the municipal election date from May to November. So what started this was in 2010, the state passed a law allowing nonpartisan governments to change to their November elections. And Mayor Freed tried to pass an ordinance to change it, but the rest of the council did not agree with him, and so it failed. So then in 2011, the league had a forum and explained the pros and cons of the issue. We did a lot of research about other towns that had their election in November. But the mayor and the council didn't agree. The council wanted to have a study committee to study it just like the league was studying it, but the mayor did not agree. So he started a petition drive to get the question directly on the ballot. But that petition drive did not succeed. And the council did form a study committee, which recommended no change to keep our election in May. Now, the league did not go public with its position on this issue because we wanted to see what the turnout was in the towns that did make the change from November to November elections. In our study, we found that many of the towns that had municipal elections in November did not increase the number of people who voted because that question was way down on the ballot. Can you imagine if this November we had that election in Montclair on the same ballot as the presidential election? Most people don't go all the way down the ballot to vote. Next slide. So here are some of the newspaper clippings. There was quite a bitter battle about having this on the ballot. And next slide, I think the issues were whether it should be partisan or nonpartisan, which we felt the November election would make it much more partisan than in May. Okay, next slide. Now, I just don't want to leave this part of the program without mentioning some of the other important issues that the League had great impact in starting, particularly in the area of the environment. Our League led the state in the recycling movement. The recycling movement started in Montclair by an active League member, Jean Clark, and we had recycling every Saturday. It became well known throughout the state, and she was the one who made this recycling issue a state mandate. We also take credit for leading the League of Women Voters of the United States to study and take action on the human trafficking issue. It started right here in our Montclair League with a member who was very interested in that issue. We took position on it, we took action on it. It spread like wildfire throughout leagues in the country and became a national study. We also helped pass the income tax in New Jersey. We also spoke out on issues regarding housing, equality in education, and transportation. Next slide. Okay, so we have a lot to be proud of in our league, and there's much more to do. But I have to tell you that it's a rewarding experience when you become involved in studying the issues and educating our members and the public and seeing what happens. It does make you feel good. Many of our league members have gone on to leadership positions in the town, on the commission, on the council. The first female member of then the commission was Betty Evans, who was an active member in our league. And many people from the league have gone on to be on the Board of Education and on many of the town committees. The league has always been respected by the public because of its thorough understanding and nonpartisan presentation of the issues. And now, next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Doris, who's going to talk about the UN. Okay, Doris. Here's Doris.
Muted. Doris?
Okay, can you hear me?
There we are.
Yes.
Okay. What's wrong with the slide?
No, sorry.
Well, I'll just go ahead while you're fixing that. I'm very pleased to see so many people attending this meeting, and the league has always been an important part of my life, and I hope that all of you will enjoy it as much as I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm going to talk about is international issues. The league is not only involved in domestic issues, but we have had a role in international events. When I first joined the league, we were studying international treaties for the reduction of nuclear weapons, and I joined that committee. But that study was slanted towards US involvement in treaties and our study of positions. But what I want to speak about now is our involvement with the United Nations. In 1944, the League began to lobby for the creation of an international body, which became the United Nations. We educated the US population about its importance, and in a few minutes, you will see a video that explains that more fully. In 1990, I had the privilege to be one of two members to represent the United States to represent the United States League at the UN. I served for 10 years as the alternate UN observer, and then my colleague and I switched roles, and I served as main UN observer, and she was the alternate for another 10 years. That was a really awesome experience. Each week, we attended programs presented by the UN on issues before them. We heard from world leaders, UN Secretariat employees, and government delegates. That in itself was fascinating and a real education. This included many Nobel Prize laureates and other inspiring speakers. I was also very impressed with some of the women leaders from countries where women traditionally had no leadership roles. They managed to succeed by hard work and intelligence against so many odds. On other times, we met with other non-governmental representatives, NGOs, on issues of mutual concern. We attended many world conferences and or preparatory meetings for world conferences, and we had a role in lobbying for wording changes to meet the needs we felt were missing in the draft documents. My colleagues and I were founding members of the Working Group on Girls of the NGO Committee of the UNICEF. At that time, the National League had as a priority issue children at risk. The girl child faced so many unbelievable problems in most parts of the world. So we decided it was fitting to help with the formation of the Working Group on Girls. Maybe at another time I can tell you of some of those multiplicity of problems the girls around the world endured. Lobbying, as I mentioned, was a big part of the plan of the Working Group on Girls, not only at conferences, but also going to individual country missions to ask for support on issues. The way we worked was that before conferences, we obtained the starting draft document issued by the Secretariat and pored over the wording, looking for places where we thought girls and women needed to be included in pledges by governments to improve our issues. When we started on this, women were an afterthought, and the unique problems of girls were not even an afterthought. When it was time for the conference or before each conference, we approached the ambassadors or others from their mission and gave them written suggestions and explained why it was important. In quite a few cases, delegates wanted to include something on our issue, but did not have the staff to draft the wording for all the many issues being discussed at the conference. So they took our suggested wording and ran with it. At the end of every day during a conference, an updated draft was produced by the Secretariat, and we would get to work drafting more wording. Some of these official meetings lasted until midnight, and we sat through hours of meetings with bated breath, waiting for our wording to be suggested and debated. We also held meetings with NGO representatives attending the conference who were interested in the same issue, so that we would all work together on wording and lobbying. We will never know how much our work helped in addressing the unique problems of girls, but we do know that girls are now firmly on the international agenda. At the Beijing Women's Conference, a whole new section on the girl child was added to the final document. And because of that, girls are discussed regularly at the UN. Also at conferences, thousands of NGOs from all over the world attended, and we went to many of their meetings and heard there the stories of great achievements, but also of great problems. Another aspect of representing the League was answering queries from members all over the country on UN issues. and also arranging for groups of league members or individual members to come to meetings at the UN. Prior to 9/11, we were able to take these league visitors all over the UN, and we took pleasure in taking them to some of the internal spots to show them beautiful art and sculptures, which were presented to the UN by member countries. But after 9/11, I was only able to take them to the meetings for which I had obtained credentials for them. Talking about credentials, another of our roles was applying for credentials for various meetings. One that will always stand out in my mind was when I applied for the League accreditation for all the future climate change conferences. I had to provide over 100 pages of documentation to prove that the League of Women Voters in the United States was an active participant in climate initiatives in the US. I also had to make several calls to Germany to defend our request. I also occasionally went to give talks to leagues in other states, but I mostly gave talks in New Jersey and New York rather than elsewhere. Members still have the opportunity to attend conferences and meetings at the UN. And judging from feedback, it is very exciting for members to attend even just one of the 2 days of a conference. The League now has 5 UN observers working on different aspects of the UN work. And I think if you are interested, you might want to follow what they do. I will be glad to give you contact information if you like. Rosalie Quiche is now the main UN observer for the League. We have 2 videos to see. But before we view the videos, I want to mention that the League provides many opportunities for members to be involved locally. And the New Jersey League, in the National League, and internationally. The more that you are involved, the more rewarding it can be. Now the videos. The National League made 2 videos that we think you might like to watch. The first video is about the UN and the League's role in the formation of the UN.
In San Francisco, representatives of 46 nations meet to secure the world against war.
The League of Women Voters felt that it was very important to have an international organization to try and prevent wars. That's why they trained 5,000 speakers who went around the country and spoke about the United Nations and distributed over 1 million pieces of literature about it. The State Department received about 1,000 letters a day, and about 90% of those letters were from League members in support of the formation of the international organization which became the United Nations.
They actually had sound trucks blaring the news about the UN in New York City, kind of breakthrough use of new technology at that time. Roosevelt was very, very concerned about broadening the constituency throughout the country on behalf of the United Nations Treaty. And this is the way he tapped the League of Women Voters. He knew that if he could get the League on his side, he would automatically have an influential constituency of activists to agitate and argue on behalf of the United Nations.
If we do not want to die together in war, we must learn to live together in peace.
We were traditionally, historically, an isolationist country, but Woodrow Wilson realized that the impact of the First World War was such that the best way of preventing future conflicts was to set up an international security organization, at that time called the League of Nations. It turned out, though, the US Senate defeated the treaty because it just did not have enough public support. Both Presidents Roosevelt and Truman learned from the bitter lessons of defeat in the League of Nations. And that's also why FDR, in one of his inspired actions, recruited the League. Had the League not been there, the question is whether there would have been enough support for the treaty to pass.
President Truman realized what a great deal of support the League of Women Voters had given to the formation of the United Nations, and so he invited the League to be at the Charter Conference.
The League did have some impact on what happened in San Francisco, particularly in expanding the role of human rights in the UN Charter, in a notion of global education as part of the mission statement. If you go to the UN today, you will see hundreds of different NGOs, as they're called, participating in the talks that go on in the organization. And this is very much a part of what the League brought to the talks in San Francisco.
We see all the good work that the UN does, and we work here really lobbying government delegates from the different countries to bring girls' issues onto the agenda. If children at risk was a priority issue, then girls, who are so much more at risk around the world, was certainly a priority issue. So we became founding members of the Working Group on Girls of the NGO Committee on UNICEF. And I think that the UN, that they've really done a great deal. And the UN agencies do so much to help people in other countries as well.
Before we turn to the second video, which is about a league leader, I want to give a shout out to our league officers who contribute so much to the successful running of our league. Liz Milner, pictured in the center, is our president, and she deals with being the president very skillfully. Susan Mack is vice president and membership chair, and many of you know that she was formerly chair of voter registration effort. Joanna Edge is our able treasurer who keeps our books and our meetings in line with our requirements. Of course, the whole board works together on so many important issues. In the second video, which has to also do with the League and the UN, it's mainly about a late League member and former First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt.
There will come a time, I think, when all people will recognize that the contribution of men and women to life is different, but equally important.
Eleanor Roosevelt was not a suffragist, and so her emergence into women's politics really came through the issues of the living wage, immigration, housing, education, sanitation, and this was what the League adopted as its own agenda. And so it was natural for Eleanor, once women got the vote, to throw her energies into the League's efforts. In the 1920s, she served as its vice president for legislative affairs. She monitored federal legislation and hearings in Congress and in the New York State legislature. What she learned from the League, certainly it exposed her to a wide variety of opinions and passions that she learned to marshal and to mobilize.
I can remember the day when the only place of leadership that was considered possible for any young woman was her own home. But she has found that in order to be the real leader at home, she must take up the full responsibilities of her citizenship.
She writes My Day column after My Day column, extolling the League of Women Voters' training mechanisms, their preparation for lobbying, their ability to keep people at the table. Eleanor writes, I've always found that the best workers in a political party frequently are graduates of the League of Women Voters. Members learn how to find out what they really want to know on a wide variety of subjects. The League of Women Voters trains good citizens who have a sense of responsibility about what goes on in their locality, in their state, and in their nation. When she leaves the White House and becomes a member of the first American delegation to the United Nations, then she really ratchets up her involvement with the League to help the League disseminate correct information to combat propaganda about the UN. So the League, to Eleanor, is a player and a partner in this campaign to promote the four freedoms at home and around the world. Eleanor believes that women must be at the table. What the League today does, I think, is that it prepares women to feel comfortable so they can join and enjoy political participation with both men and women.
So before I move on to this slide, I did want to make a comment. Carolyn did a great job talking about everything that the Montclair Area League has done in the past. But we have members from townships all surrounding Montclair, as Doris had mentioned. So we have town teams that had been focused on voter registration for last year. And what we're looking at doing is to support those members and the other town teams so they can get just as active in their own towns as Montclair has been in our town. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then moving on to this slide, what should you do next? Definitely go to the website, log on, create your own username and passcode to get the full access to the site. As members, you can access through that passcode, membership directory, photos, and documents. It's a much more robust, it is already a robust site. It's even more robust once you can log in as a member. The website is constantly getting updated by our webmaster and more. There's a calendar of events. You can click on easily to any event on the Zoom from the calendar notice there. There's also a very long list of committees and town teams, which is a great first step opportunity to get involved. Some of the committee membership needs to be updated. They're not 100% current, but that's on my to-do list. And we can take questions at the end. So next slide. So here's a quote from our own suffragist Alice Paul from New Jersey, one of our favorites.
Blair.
Yes. And as Mary Lee had noted earlier, we are having program planning for all members on Wednesday, January 27th. So the process that Mary Lee was talking about is going to happen actually this year for the League on January 27th at 7 p.m. That is also already on the calendar on the website, so you can just click on that. If you're not a member, we'd love to have you join us. It's great, as you've heard, I don't need to repeat everything, but it's been just a wonderful experience. Thanks for all your time and interest in the League and on this program. Feel free to reach out to me directly for anything, whether it's membership, activities, interest, or if you just want to talk about the weather. I'm always here. And most importantly, we look forward to working with you all as members or as volunteers and all these important issues in our communities and at national and state levels as well. Any questions? I know we're a big group, but I've been answering as many chats as I can, chat questions. We can
I'm just quickly going through them now. So there's questions on the program planning meeting that's on January 27th at 7 p.m. You can see that listed on the website. You can get the Zoom invite on that. And that's when we're going to do the annual program planning that was covered. People commenting about the voter registration in local high schools. Is there a way we can educate voters about misinformation? How to educate yourself and find credible sources of news and information? Oh, for sure. I mean, we count ourselves to be the most credible as the voter services chair. Maybe I should take that one, the voter education chair. That's a large part of what we did. We spent countless time and effort in 2020 focused on, for example, on vote by mail, getting out to the public, staying up to date. Because it was a very fluid situation because of the pandemic, and the state was making changes and the county was making changes all the time. So we spent an awful lot of effort trying to get the most correct information out and disseminated because there was a lot of misinformation being spread about vote by mail. So that's one example. But it's never ending. We're going to have to continue to do it in each election cycle. Let's see. Any other questions? Voting observations? Are there any other, if anybody wants to unmute real quickly, if anybody else has any further questions before we wrap this up? No? Oh, Anne, please.
Hi there, everybody. I just want to alert you all that in the coming months, we will be getting our voter registration activities up and running. We have a gubernatorial election coming up in 2021. It's hard to think about that in spite of everything we're going through right now, but that is on the horizon. So we will be reaching out to all of our town teams to start the process of voter registration events once again. Hopefully the COVID restrictions will ease up a little bit, but we'll do the safest way possible to reach out to new voters. So just stay tuned for information on that. And just keep an eye out on the website for events leading to voter registration events.
Right. There was a question, somebody asked a question about, is our local group as involved in the fair districting effort as is it on the state level? Obviously, the state league is very heavily involved in the fair districting movement. That will heat up again this year. Okay. And so that is absolutely on our plate to look at for 2021. So if anybody would like to lead that effort, come on in to our planning meeting on the 27th. We would love to have help leading programs on fair districting.
The National League also working on that.
Yes, yes, that's a big league topic. Anything else? Let's see. No? Well, I'm just going to lead the first round of applause for all of our presenters tonight. Thank you so much for a wonderful job and giving us such a great overview. We welcome all the new members and current members, and really hope to see you at events starting January 22nd for the planning meeting. Thanks again. Any other words, Susan?
Nope. Just a last plug for membership. You can easily join online now with the credit card and or PayPal. So you can just click, join us, and walk through the steps. So
thank you, everybody. You put together a terrific program. I am so thrilled to see so many people show up. This is going to be a great year.
Yeah, it's very well done. Thank you.
Yes, good job.
Really well done.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.